If you had to pick one Real Housewife of Salt Lake City to go into business with, who would it be?
I definitely think that would be a horrible idea to go into business with any of my cast.
Welcome to episode 36 of the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I am your host, Shawn D. Nelson, sometimes known as that love sack guy. Today, we have a fantastic Shawnism to unpack. There's always a better view, right? There's always a bigger house, shinier car, someone with a better job, easier job, better family, whatever. Think about that for a minute. How often are you left with just wanting more without ever celebrating and being grateful for what you already have, what you've accomplished, your business, your family, your life, who knows? It happens to all of us. We often focus on the next thing and the next view we aspire to look from. But how often do we just take the time to admire where we are and be in the moment? We need to do more of that. How do we do more of that? How do you take a moment to be truly grateful for what you currently have without ruminating on the past, which is already gone, or solving problems for the future, which is not real either? As Meredith says in this podcast, you're going to hear, there's always a bright and shiny object to chase. Don't be distracted. Be in the now. Enjoy the view you have because there's always a better one. I really think you're going to love this podcast. Check it out. All right. We welcome to the podcast an entrepreneur, founder, businesswoman, actress, reality TV sensation, real of the most real housewives of Salt Lake City, Ms. Meredith Marks. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Heck yeah. It's going to be so much fun. I have to tell you, my wife, Tiffany, was apoplectic that she couldn't be in the room, with you having this podcast with me. She's a huge fan of the show and, everything you represent. And so anyway, sending her love.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you to her too.
So, where do we find you today? You're at home?
I'm in New York right now. On my way back to Utah I go to Chicago tomorrow and then Utah on Saturday. So a little hectic. It's been a hectic couple of months, that's for sure. But all good.
I'm excited to get into it. I'm here in Las Vegas, and it's actually kind of in a weird way relevant to our topic. So we're going to be discussing there's always a better view, right? The Shawnism that, of course, I have a lot to say about it, and I'll tie it back to what I'm doing here in a second. But when you first heard about this idea and what you think it represents, Meredith, without thinking too hard, what was the first thing that came to mind in your life, in your world, through your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, this thing, there's always somebody who has more, there's always somebody. It's like you just have to be grateful for where you are, what you have, no matter what, there's always going to be somebody who has something that you don't have that you want. And that's life. And so to me, if you have two choices, you can either live your life with gratitude for what you have and focus on yourself and being the best version of yourself you can be, or you can live your life out of jealousy and fixate on what other people have that you don't have, or worry about what other people are doing and saying and not focus on yourself. And usually you don't thrive so much under those circumstances.
Perfect. I mean, I actually came across a quote the other day I liked. It's not that happy people are grateful, it's that grateful people are happy. And, so I'm here at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, biggest trade show on the planet, biggest trade show in Las Vegas. Everything's packed. It's crazy. And I walk around every year at this thing because Lovesac does some tech. And I look at everything new that's come out from companies all over the world, right? Showing off everything from the latest, I don't know, e-scooters to earth movers to lawn mowers, pool cleaners, I mean, everything on the planet that has, electricity running through it. And everywhere I look, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a business there. I can make so much money doing this, doing that. And I'm 26 years into Lovesac, and I think have a chance at building this into a mega brand and doing some really cool stuff with it that's really impactful to the world. But it's so easy to get distracted because there's always a better view. There's always an easier company. There's always an easier way to make money. There's all, and everything looks easy on the outside. Everyone's life looks glamorous. And this is where I'm so interested to talk to you, a real housewife of Salt Lake City, I think the number one, installment of the franchise, of the Real Housewife franchise, at least by most people's standards. And you are like a queen of glamour in so many people's eyes, right? From your bath ritual to, your lifestyle, Park City, Utah, everything. And you might be one of those better views to so many people looking from the outside in, right? But of course, only you know how twisted that show might have really been. Only you know how in ways messed up your own life is at times, like all of ours, like all these things. So there's always a better view, right? And I think you are really straddling so many aspects of this idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You find a lot, a lot of Housewives is obviously very much rooted in lifestyle. So you do see a lot of the women who get very competitive and like kind of almost like creepy trying to see what you're doing and what you have and this, that, and the other when it's like, I'm pretty happy in my life, so I'm not really worrying about what the next guy is doing or what the next guy has. It's people who are usually pretty unhappy or insecure in their own circumstances that are critical of someone else's. So I'm not worrying about it. It's to
Mm-hmm.
me, that's the beauty of where I am at. I feel like I have what I want. There's always more. We all always want more. But if I never had more, I could be very happy where I am. And because of that, I think you actually do get more. It's almost like the more you strive for it, the more you miss it a lot of the time. And when you feel like you're already there and you're in a good space, things start to come to you a little more.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing word of wisdom from a real housewife. I think that there can be such a stigma, not just around the housewives, but around reality TV, around anything that's like you said, lifestyle oriented. What do you think is the most misconceived? What do you think is the biggest misconception around Meredith Marks and your persona that's out there?
I think a lot of times it goes to intentions. I think that a lot of times you'll hear my castmates speaking for me, saying what my intentions were and things when they're just 100% wrong. Um, so that I would say is a big thing, and this whole idea like people augmenting words that change the meaning of things that I feel like has gone on with me, or not even just words, sometimes augmenting absolutely the whole story, or whatever. But, I think I've had a lot of accusations come my way that are unfounded, and some of the women just run with them. And then you're like, whoa, none of that happened. What are you talking about? And you think like, the audience isn't going to believe that because we never saw that happen. But when the people keep saying it over and over and over again, the public starts to believe it because they don't really remember that it never really happened.
Wow, that that takes it to a place I hadn't thought of. If we twist these words, there's always a better view. So I am a person. God, this is like risky. So we'll get into my own reality TV career in a little bit, maybe. But I won $1 million on TV. In case you didn't know, Meredith,
Oh,
on,
I didn't know
on a
that.
live TV show
Wow.
way back in the day. And this is with Richard Branson on the Rebel Billionaire. I'll come back to that, but there's always a better view. So I'm a CEO of a public company, and I've been educated. I have a master's degree, whatever. I've traveled the world, still building this brand, employing thousands of people. And I'll tell you what, I am at a place now where I believe, without being, I don't think of myself as a conspiracy theorist, but there is always a different view for sure. If you've been on reality TV, then you know that you can be portrayed and misconveyed and also misinterpreted in every way possible. Not just, to save your ego, because who knows what your actual intentions ever are, but what's even reality? What even really happened? It's amazing. Even if it was not changed in editing, it's amazing what people can see and perceive. What do you think is one of the craziest things that people saw or think they saw with their eyes, but actually the public somehow just got it completely wrong? Because you live in this world of, I don't think there's a better example than the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like the most basic current example right now that we've dealt with, this season was that I never said anything about Shawn. Never. And somehow I'm being held responsible for the actions of, Monica and Whitney.
So enough people said something that it somehow just took on a life, or where did that come from?
Well, for 2 years, when you've said Meredith started these rumors, and they say that over and over again for 2 years, people start to believe it, even though there's no basis for it. And the funniest part of the whole thing is I say the rumors, the nastiness, about her. That's the funny thing. If you really look at it, it's like, what was the reference? I said, oh, you want to go there? We can talk about the husbands, only because Angie spoke horribly about my husband at the table, just got edited out. So that was it. And now suddenly, they think I speculated on his sexuality and affairs, and neither of those things happened. So
there's an accurate view out there. There's some kind of truth out there. I think we live in a world where people can sometimes take this position that there is no truth. There's only my truth, your truth, but things do happen or don't happen. And there is a correct view. There is a better view, just to twist this up. But I think it's amazing how our government and any kind of powerful force can put out messages through various means and make almost anything true in people's minds, as you experienced in a sort of a micro level in this microcosm of a reality TV show life, and that's why I'm at the place where I think that most conspiracy theories at this point are not conspiracy theories. Most of them are conspiracies, and in one way or another happened, and were often hidden by the obfuscating of the facts, intentionally, like what you describe. So I don't know. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but that's kind of where I'm at in life.
I don't disagree. I don't know if I 100% agree with you, but I definitely do not disagree.
Yeah. It's wild, right? Like what people get away with
wild.
And what you can.
It is wild. It is. It's just about convincing others. And, if you can convince other people, they'll believe you and they'll act upon things, accordingly based on those beliefs. And it's just absolutely wild to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought was so cool about the outing of the troll. What's her? I'm sorry. It's
Monica.
Monica. Yeah. I mean, she lived in that world, right? Of just fabricating and putting out messages.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's, if you say something enough times, people believe it.
People ask me sometimes, just to parlay on the whole reality TV thing. So yeah, I won a reality TV show with Richard Branson. This is like his version of The Apprentice, but not for apprentices, for, entrepreneurs kind of. It was one season. It was 2005, if you can believe that. And I was sort of famous for a minute before social media in Salt Lake City, ironically, because that's where I grew up. and having won this big international show, it was kind of a big deal at the time. And people sometimes ask me, like, what did you learn from that whole experience? And there's two things that stick with me that are related to this topic. Number one, I got to travel around the world with and meet all of Richard Branson's CEOs of his like various companies, Virgin Planes, Virgin Trains, Virgin Megastore, like everything Virgin. And as awesome as that brand is, I learned something very young in my business career, and you'll appreciate this as an entrepreneur. Meredith has her own jewelry line. You started a caviar company. I learned that even these sophisticated CEOs of multi-billion-dollar organizations at the time led organizations that were just totally screwed up in some form or fashion, had their, share of problems and dysfunction. And it's amazing to me being on the inside and getting to hire people out of organizations much larger than, Lovesack's become a public company. We're approaching $1 billion now. It's not small, not massive either, but I get to hire some of the best talent. And as I interview them and even bring them on, and I realize that as fraught with problems and dysfunction as we are, as any organization is, so we're the one that they left. Some of the biggest companies in the world. And so that was, as you've gone through life and lived and gotten exposed to now all kinds of celebrities and wealth and fame, and also in your entrepreneur life, have you experienced any of that? Have you seen any of the same? Speaking of, there's always a better view, a shinier company, a shinier person.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for me, I think that was my view for decades of my
Yeah.
life. It took me a lot of maturity to realize that, like, I am in a good space, to be happy where you're sitting, to be comfortable in the place you are in, rather than if you spend all of your time thinking about the next move, the next business. Yes, you want to be forward thinking, but you also want to be thriving and enjoying the space that you're in.
Even if it's got its share of dysfunction, problems, shortcomings, debts, who knows what.
It's true. I mean, you're not going to succeed if you're always thinking about what's next rather than what's present. I mean, yes, you have to think about what's next as well, but
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between having an open view towards the future and worrying more about the future than the present, you know?
All right. I want to come back to that. I've been thinking a lot about being in the moment. How about this? The second thing that I learned from my stint on reality TV and my 15 minutes of fame back in the day, I had to do all of the press and everything related to that. I was on Fox, primetime, all that. And so I had this little moment where, at least everyone in Utah especially knew who I was. And in fact, I had one person, it was wild, impersonate me. He kind of looked like me, had spiky hair at the time. And he did some really obnoxious stuff. And then someone got on video and thought it was me. And then they tried to blackmail me by saying, I'm going to release this video. It was like in a convenience store acting badly. And it wasn't even me, but they were going to try and blackmail me.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
it's crazy.
insane.
And the FBI ended up having to I'm not even joking. Okay. But what I learned was no matter what's going on in your life, when you have a little bit of fame, have you ever felt this, that people associate fame with wealth and wealth with ease, and they lose empathy for you? Like in the sense that,
Yes.
like, oh, so what if her dog died? I mean, she's rich. There's this feeling that, you, if you're
I
rich,
think it depends. I think there are a handful of people where that's the case, where they just are sort of like, well, you put yourself on TV, so you deserve whatever comes your way,
there you
or
go.
whatever. And you hear it sometimes, like you'll see a comment like that on social media or whatever. It's very odd to me. It's kind of like, okay, because you're on a reality TV show does not entitle, the world to every aspect, every moment of my entire life, and negate that I have feelings and that I'm a human being. But I think it's kind of a smaller group. I think most people really are pretty grateful that we share what we share. And, I will say for the most part, like our cast does share, whether you like each person or hate each person or whatever, most of us are really actually giving a lot,
Okay.
and giving a lot of our lives, a lot of information, a lot of what's going on. And you get judged. That's human nature. People are judgy, and that's just part of it. And you learn to not care. I mean, I learned to not care. At least I hope
Yeah.
everyone else is
Mhm.
too.
You develop a thick skin. Not everyone can do it, and I think it's an interesting point of view to hear you talk about it like that. That you feel as if, and I don't mean this in a critical way, in a supportive way, that you're sharing, that you're putting yourself out there for people's entertainment. And by the way, that's not always easy to do. You subject yourself to all kinds of criticism and unforeseen outcomes, drama. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you put out there that you are like, when you see how it gets interpreted by the audience, and maybe that's partially just the nature of the fact that, these are snippets of our lives. They're not seeing every moment, and you leave little bits and pieces out, and it kind of changes things a lot, but it would be really boring to watch if it were every moment. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's the nature of it. And you end up with a lot of people who are always going to have a very different point of view on it, no matter what it is. Like anything, you're never going to have full support. You're always going to be met with criticism by somebody. So why do you care,
Mm-hmm.
you know
And what do you think as an entrepreneur? So, shifting gears from reality TV, you run this successful jewelry line, uh, label brand, and you have a lot of celebrity support there. And how do you think this idea relates to the business you've built or other business or what you're a serial entrepreneur? How do you think about there's always a better view from the standpoint of a business person.
You know, it's interesting because there's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement. There's always work to be done. And I don't sit still often. I don't like take a lot of downtime for myself because I am always striving to do better and be better, and in every aspect of my life. Business is 100% included. So, but on the flip side, I'm proud of my accomplishments. I'm proud of where I am. I don't want to stand in somebody else's shoes. There isn't another designer out there where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd rather be this person or whatever. I'm very happy with what I have built because this was my choice. This is what I've chosen to do. Um, and yes, there are bigger and better things, of course, but I'm proud of where I'm at. And so it's like this feeling of being content and happy with where you're at, but also at the same time striving to do better and be better and, just be the best version of whatever business you're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And always working on improvement and finding new ways and figuring out ways to, cut back costs or improve quality or this, always it's improve sales, whatever. And
Yeah.
it's to me, I think I always focus on things that I love in business because I feel like if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're never really working. And that's why I decided to do the caviar. because it's something that I absolutely love. And I saw there weren't a ton of, branded caviar out there, and I kind of just dove in head first. That's what I do.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations. Yeah, one of the
Thank
things that I think is so elusive as an entrepreneur is this weird dance between, we as humans developing on the earth, we're encouraged to be present, we're encouraged to be grateful. On the other hand, we're encouraged to be ambitious, I think, as business people, as entrepreneurs, chasing bigger, better, faster, cheaper, all those, all the things. And it's really hard to know when you're being complacent and when you're being appropriately patient and diligent and playing the long game. Like in my case, Lovesac is 26 years in. We have a chance, I think, at building an international brand that means something in the world, sustainability, longevity, quality, all these things. But it requires me to focus. I could make, I mean, look, Elon Musk has all these different entities. I don't know. So sometimes I feel like a loser. Like I should be able to CEO three companies and whatever. But
I don't know about that,
well, but
but
like it's tricky because you have ambition on the one hand, but it's focus that really, I at least has brought me any success. And so that's where I wander a show like CES and I see all of these ideas and all these businesses surrounding me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could quickly make a few million over here, whatever. But it would come at I think the sacrifice of what I think we can turn Lovesac into, which it's very hard to get a company to this scale, to this size. And so I have to be quite disciplined in my thinking. And I think what you said is really worthy of passing on, this idea that if you're in a place where you, like I do, like I feel, where whatever you're doing is giving you what you need fundamentally, like it's providing an income, a path to wealth, maybe, whatever it is that drives you. Like in my case, I get to create these environments for people. I get to employ thousands of people. I get to do all these cool things. I get to travel and do things that I love. I still get plenty of time with my family. So, oh my gosh, I check every box. So why would I ever risk that and be distracted from that just so I could get like richer? And that's ironic because I think most people just associate entrepreneurship and business building with like the pursuit of wealth. And I think that's an outcome. But for me, that's honestly not what drives me. I would love to have more wealth. I'd love to make more money and do all those things and to create wealth for others too. But that's not fundamentally what drives me. What drives me is all those other boxes that I checked along the way a minute ago. And so that's where I sometimes have to put the blinders on and like remind myself to stay focused. Have you ever wrestled with that?
all the time. I mean, well, first of all, I think that when you're an entrepreneur focusing strictly on money and wealth, that usually is not going to end the way you're hoping for, because it's about building, it's about growing, it's about creating, and that's what business is. And the end result is the money that you make,
Mm-hmm.
the relationships that you make, the impact that you hopefully make, that's positive for people, whatever that may be. Um, so, but I think that I'm distracted all the time. Like, and there are things where I'm like, I should do this, I should do that. And especially with the show, because there's like 10 gazillion different merch opportunities. And it's like, that's not really my business. Can I sell all of it? Sure, of course. That's what we're set up to do. I have a store, like, I can do all of it. But my model was not built, on selling $100 sweatshirts or whatever we
Yeah.
sell them for. Not even that much. I
Yeah.
don't know. It was built on really fine jewelry. And that's, operationally very different than doing something that's, mass sales at a low price point. So it's important, and that sometimes can distract and hurt your real business if you're not, you can only be torn in so many directions at a time.
That's right.
And I want to do everything always. Like I always am like, yes, I love that. I love this. I love whatever. Like I embrace things. That's who I am. That's how I am with people too. Like I love people. I love meeting new people, you know, and sometimes you need to cut it off,
Hmm.
it's just true with people too. Like it's to a point where I feel like the quality of some of my relationships isn't as good because I'm stretched too thin, and I struggle
Hmm.
to respond to people who deserve an answer.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's the same thing. You can't spread yourself too thin. It's taking things one step at a time and slowly growing and adding and doing, things. But there's always a bright, shiny object out there. And, we all want to chase the bright, shiny object.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I know people, I can think of examples as probably many of those listening can think of people who somehow have their hand in, 16 businesses, and they've got investments here and all this stuff going on and whatever. And I guess that's a path as well that people can find success or, multiple income streams and all these other things. All I can speak for is myself. And I can say that, um, for the most part, and I think it aligns with what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, like I said, build something that's here for decades and even a, century. I think Lovesac can become that kind of brand. And because I've made that choice, the sacrifice that comes is tremendous focus. Like I have to really be disciplined so that I don't accidentally, in the pursuit of money or fame or something else, chase all of these things at once. It's interesting that you bring it to people and friends, because I think it's true there as well. I think there are people who are happy to have tons and tons of relationships and friends, and so you got to know who you are. And that's where I come back to almost every podcast is self-awareness. Like if you know really what makes you happy, then you can operate in a way that aligns with that. And I think where people become unhappy is when they're somehow, you will see someone like I could see the person running 6 or 16 businesses and try and be like that person and maybe even make a bunch of money doing it. But I might be radically more unhappy than I am focused like I am on what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
100%. I think that, you know, it's easy to get distracted and for some people that's important. I do need a lot of things going on, just not too many. There's like a certain balance. I do like to have a lot going on, and I do like to have a lot of people around me, and I like a lot of stimulation. I do. And but it's also easy to take that too far. And then you're like, whoa, 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 I'm overwhelmed. Like, I know now the things that I'm doing right now, if I were doing the same exact thing 20 years ago, I would have been so stressed out by all of it. But I've learned how to manage the stress. I've learned how to not let it get to me. I've learned how to, we have to develop and grow our coping mechanisms for all the things we do as well.
Yeah.
So I've grown up. I'm more mature. Like I've stopped for the most part worrying about the things that I can't change and can't control, which is most things in life.
Now that's a skill, the ability to compartmentalize, to take these stressful things, whether it's debt, financial commitments, um, uh, a relationship that's, unfixable at the moment that might need time, any of these things that create uncertainty in our life. Some people do not have the capacity to cope with, but that capacity can be developed. How do you develop? How have has it just come naturally because you've been forced to by being thrown into the fire? Or, have you done anything to develop the capacity to cope as you describe it?
I think it's both. I mean, I've certainly had plenty of therapy,
Good.
which always helps
That's
with
great.
everything.
Yeah.
For sure. It's definitely, you learn a lot of skills in navigating and managing from that. But I also think like being thrown in the public eye, it just by virtue of it takes away so many stresses and fears in life because you're just navigating and like I said, you've learned just really not to care about a lot of things that you would have cared about in the past. And that right there, that release is huge. It's just huge. It's such a, when you're worrying about what everyone is thinking and saying about you, it's a terrible burden. Do I worry about the things that people I love and care about think and say about me? Yes, I do. I mean, I'm not, totally detached from it, but the strangers, no, I really don't. Like, you're a stranger, you're entitled to your opinion. I put myself out there, so guess what? You can have an opinion. Great. I don't agree with you, but feel free to think whatever you want to think. That's on you, not on me.
That's great. Look, I think people can underestimate what a skill that is, and praiseworthy. I think like not everyone can cope with the kind of scrutiny that you get in your position, as an entrepreneur, as a female entrepreneur, as a reality TV participant, particularly on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake. So let's shift back to that for a second for fun. So my wife really wants to know, this is like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake in particular seems to be followed by more celebrities than all the other installments of the franchise. Who's the coolest person now that follows you on social media? And have you had any interactions with any of these now, super famous people that know who you are from all this?
Yeah, it's kind of wild because you've like people coming up to you who, you've admired and watched and this, that, and the other. And it's also very unexpected. And I would say like a lot of the times I don't it takes me a moment to recognize anybody. It's kind of embarrassing to be totally
Right.
honest. But um, you know, I think I have a lot of people who are really flattering to me that have followed me. Um, I think one of the people that I really was flattered by was Goldie Hawn when she
Mm,
followed me. That was kind of a big deal. She was, someone who I grew up admiring and
yeah.
watching, and she, is a fan of my jewelry. I guess Chelsea Handler introduced her to it. Chelsea had been a client for many years, and I don't know. To me, that was like a big deal.
Yeah. That's
It
cool.
was.
I'm curious, does it ever cross your mind as you make posts or content, like having those kind of eyes on you? Does that ever affect how you think about it?
No, no, I forget about all of that. The posts and the content and whatever, you're doing stuff that you would just want to share or because, you think it's going to be entertaining or, I mean, the best posts in my view are the ones that people like laugh, that
Mhm.
bring a smile that people are like, oh gosh, no way, or whatever. Um, but, I feel like my last post from last year was like that, where I was like, something you can leave behind in, 2024. And I posted a photo of myself with my bangs and said, I'll go first. I can laugh at myself. I have a good sense of humor and I have no problem laughing at myself. I do it all the time.
Yeah, look,
I
I
make fun
think
of myself.
being self-deprecating is a skill that I didn't acquire early enough. I think
Yeah.
I think especially if you're going to be in the public eye in any realm, being able to just not take yourself too seriously and even find ways to, be deprecating is something that I wish that I would have discovered earlier on in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to like just laugh and not really worry that much about it. None of it is that important. We're not, hopefully nobody's dying. Hopefully nobody's sick,
Mhm.
hopefully nobody's home burnt down like is
Yeah.
happening. I mean, like those are big deal things, but the stuff that we're dealing with, for the most part, some of the things we deal with are big deal things, but most of it is not that deep.
Yep. That's sage advice. Is there, so I got to know, is there going to be a spinoff with the Real Housewives of Salt Lake husbands? They've got like such good chemistry.
I mean, I have no idea. I know I don't control any of that. Um, it would be funny. They are a funny crew. I will say that. They're all very, I mean, what I think makes us work is we are all wired so differently. There's no one on the cast I feel like, oh my gosh, these two people really think alike. They're that much like, everyone is wired very, very differently. And that's what I think works. That's why I think it's interesting, because the way I could be sitting there and listening to the same exact thing as, I don't know, Lisa, and she could interpret it in a completely different way than me. And that is what's so interesting about the
Mm-hmm.
show is, a deep dive analysis about how people communicate and interpret your communications.
Mm. So where are you at? Where are you at with Lisa right now?
Oh, we're good. We're good,
Oh,
good, good. Everything's great. Yeah,
that's great.
everything's great. We had a good season.
If you had to pick one Real Housewife of Salt Lake City to go into business with, who would it be?
I definitely think that would be a horrible idea to go into business with any of my cast. And it's not saying that they're not good business people. It's just opening a can of worms that I think I could not handle.
All right. Well, I guess I was going to ask you who you wouldn't go into business. Okay, who would you definitely, no matter what, under any circumstance, not go into business with?
Well, first, is there anyone on my cast who's never worked? I don't think so. We don't have anybody, right? Everybody has worked.
That's good.
Isn't that wild? I don't know.
Working
Who would I never go into business with? Well,
like,
everyone.
everyone. All right. Enough said.
Probably not Brittany because she'd record me.
So this idea of presence, just to come back to that, you mentioned, living in the present. I recently had a conversation on this podcast with John Mackey. He's the founder of Whole Foods, another billionaire friend, and he is a really interesting guy. He grew up and started his business like in the 70s. It was very hippie commune. It was, he is atheist, has a lot of interesting beliefs, uh, very much about the present, very much about, he made the point on the podcast, the past is gone. Future doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is the present. I think it's something that I know I struggle with. I'm one, my wife always makes fun of me. If I like talk to myself sometimes, she catches me like mumbling things to myself because I'm thinking about things. I'm unpacking things that I should have done differently. I'm thinking about, something about tomorrow. It's like I really struggle at times being totally present. You brought it up. You talked about being present. Is that something that you've developed? Where did you come to this thinking yourself? Talk to me about.
Yeah, I think that's something I've developed too. I think like this whole concept of not of being kind of able to rein in the reeling thoughts is the same thing, whether it's about just being present in the moment as opposed to thinking about your to-do list for tomorrow, or focusing on the current business at hand rather than worrying about what the next one is, or it's that reeling, it's the thinking, it's what creates anxiety, it's what keeps us up at night, is not being able to stop your brain from doing that. And so it's hard. I mean, it's really, really hard. I feel like I get better at it every year and every day, but the more you have the more you have going on around you, the more things that you're doing, the harder it is to be present, because there's so much to worry about outside of where you are at that given moment.
And why do you think that is so important?
To be present.
Yeah.
Because if you're not enjoying the now, what are you striving for? Then you're going to get there and not enjoy the next now.
Yeah, there you
You
go.
know, you keep striving for something that's never obtainable if that's the case. And I feel like that's a life of frustration. I think you have to, be able to enjoy present moments. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have too many other things circulating in your brain to allow it. But to do your best, to enjoy those moments, because it's like, to me, it's so defined by something like having children, where people are always like, oh, it flies by, it goes so fast. Everybody tells you that and you never believe it. Da, 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 da. Well, it's true. Believe it, okay? Because I'm
Mhm.
telling you that's true. And you see something like that. And I say to myself, like, now that my kids are all adults, there are so many times where I say to myself, I wish I had been more present then. I wish I had, you know, been more in that moment at that time, because you can't get it back.
So let's say I believe that. Let's say I take you at face value and okay, I accept that. Other than saying it out loud like we just did, how do you do it? How do you how do you be more present? What do you need to change or do or develop as a
Throw the
skill?
phone out the window. I mean, the phone to me is one of the most distracting things there is, because it allows us to go and research any and everything you ever wanted to, and so every passing thought, you're like, oh, let me look it up, let me, whatever. And B, you have things being thrown at you through your phone every second by, texts or whatever, emails, etc. And so to me, that's like a huge distraction. It's great, like on the rare occasion that I do forget to bring my phone with me or something, it's really very freeing.
Mhm.
So, that would be number one. But number two is trying to really engage and be focused on whoever you are with, and listen, be a good listener,
Mhm.
that's a good thing. Um and just to try to shut it down. It's our own minds that take us out of the present
Yes.
moment, that's all it is.
Yeah, it's really something I struggle with because I feel like it is my mind that solves problems and invents the next thing and works on the next strategy. Um, but sadly, it is my mind that takes me out of the present and has me. I mean, that's the really it's to the root of our conversation today, right? There's always a better view. There's always something else to be worrying about. There's always something else to be scheming about. There's always something else you could be working on or working out in your mind right now or looking at on your phone. So these are good tactics, right? Shutting down your phone, finding ways to put limits on your phone time. Finding, I've worked on trying to just. I know it sounds crazy for someone who is a thinker and my job requires thinking, but outside of necessarily uh, obviously work times and other times, finding overt ways to shut my mind down and focus on what's exactly in front of me. I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed dirt biking. I probably talk about it too much on my podcast, but things like, I ride really fast off-road motorcycles, and you cannot not be present. You will die.
Correct.
You will
And that's what
literally,
my husband always says about skiing. Same
yeah.
thing. Like, you have to be present. And sometimes that's really hard. And I did actually, I remember I was trying to talk on the phone on my AirPods while I was skiing once, and I almost killed myself. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like thinking, well, that shouldn't be an issue, but it
Mm-hmm.
is. You got to actually be focused on what you're doing. So I agree. I think that stuff is always really good, because you have no choice. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. If you want to make it out alive.
Mhm. Yeah, it can be nice to put yourself in a situation where you have to be present. And that's the case for me. For anyone else who struggles with it, I also think developing an overt ability to compartmentalize, take things that are really can be quite weighty, um, like big problems in your life, the things that stress us out, as I've said, debt, who knows, that kind of thing, financial pressure, things but they're still outside of our control, right? There's times where we can worry about what I need to do to deal with this. And then, okay, I've done that. I know what I'm going to do. And now there's this waiting game sometimes in life, right? Where you can't do the thing until it's the right time or until something changes that you can't control. And that's where you have to develop the capacity to compartmentalize, force those things out of your mind, and just live in the now. And that, I think, can be very elusive for people. And I think it's a strength that entrepreneurs have often a little bit of capacity with, because that's what makes them entrepreneurs fundamentally, is the ability to thrive in uncertainty. It's one of my little Shawnisms, thriving in uncertainty. But I think you can also develop that muscle. And so I appreciate what you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all like a learning curve, as we grow, we learn more and more. And
So what would you say to those who look to you? Like, you're this bastion of sophistication and luxury in some people's eyes. You're on TV, you're a celebrity, you rub shoulders with celebrities, you have celebrities follow you, these things. And they might view you as and your lifestyle, what it represents, as the better view. There's always a better view. There's always a better place you could plunk your house down or move to, or more money. What would you say to those people? And what advice would you have for them as you're living it?
yeah, I mean, my advice is, be grateful for where you are and what you have, and it's always great to strive to do better, but, worry about yourself, not the next person. Like, to me, it's like I want to be the best version of myself, and what the next person is doing is not relevant to that. There's no, a lot of the women like to say it's tit for tat. I don't play tit for tat. I
Yeah.
don't like, to
Good.
me, just because you did something awful doesn't mean I need to lower myself to your level to do it right back to you. I'm not saying I haven't done that. We've all done it at some point. I'm far from perfect, but I strive to do better. I don't strive to do tit for tat. I strive to be the best person I can be, the best version of myself. And that's what I think the real takeaway is, not worrying about, what the next person has, what the next person is doing, and to focus on yourself. And when you focus on yourself and you're happy with what you're doing and what you have in your life, you're not going to be judgmental or critical of the next person, because it doesn't matter to you, because you're happy in your own shoes.
That's good. Yeah, I think as you said that, it made me think of a piece of advice as well, which is that it's occurred to me a few times as I've gotten to know, as you get to know people, even very wealthy people, very successful people that seem to have it all. If you really get to know them, I don't want their problems. They're dealing with sometimes things that I didn't know until I got close to them. And I thought I had problems. I wouldn't trade my problems for their problem. Sometimes we have to be grateful for our unique suite of problems, because as hard as they are, as rough as they are, you don't want someone else's if you get to know them.
No, it's like you'd rather have the devil it's the same thing. Like, we all usually rise to the occasion to deal with what we need to deal with, and that doesn't mean we could deal with what the next person deals with. And everybody has problems, nobody doesn't. Like, that's just, to think anyone's life is just perfect and wonderful at all times is just not true. I mean, people lie, like, a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm pretty honest about things. Like, if things are good, I say they're good. If things are bad, I say they're bad. Like, I'm not, just trying to say that everything's perfect all the time, because it's not. And I'm not perfect. And my husband's not perfect. And my children aren't perfect. And, we're doing the best we can and trying to do better each day. And that's all you can ask of anybody. And to me, that's the place to live in, and not worrying about the next person. Strive to do better for yourself, not to compete with your friends. It's about you. It's your own race against yourself.
I love it. And I love that is coming from a real housewife. I just think there's such a cultural, you know, stereotype that comes along with everything reality TV represents, uh, the franchise. And so it's great to hear from you. And as an
Look, I
entrepreneur,
can't say that any other housewife would say
yeah,
that.
yeah.
They're probably like, worry about the next guy, do better than them, make sure you have more. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, that's why I'm talking to you. Um, that's great. As an entrepreneur, maybe just to wrap up, the title of my show, Let Me Save You 25 Years, right? It's really dedicated to trying to share with people wherever we find them on their journey, earlier than later, something that could have saved you some heartaches, some headaches along the way as you built your brands that you're building, as you built your life as a mother, as a who knows, however you want to take it. What advice do you have for someone that might save them a chunk of their own 25-year journey?
Um, the interesting thing is, that's probably why I was interested in this topic, because it's really everything we're talking about is being
Well,
focused on yourself, and being focused on what you're doing in the moment, and yes, to have sight into the future, but that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is the present, and to do the best you can do for yourself and not anybody else. I mean, that those are all, everything we've been talking about is really, that's why I like the topic, because I was like, and so many people are way too consumed with the next guy. And like, just because somebody's doing things one way and you're doing them another way doesn't mean that they're right. Maybe you're the one doing it right?
yeah.
So if you worry about what you're doing and not about what the next person's doing, I think it's a much happier life.
And just to build on that in a strange way, in a sort of contrarian way, one thing I have to remind myself of, because sometimes I get so busy just dealing, right? Business is thick, problems are everywhere. My life is complex like the rest of ours. I'm a father, I'm of four, I'm in the middle of it, 16, 14, 12, 10-year-old on top of everything. And I have to push myself to also seek out opportunities, not to venerate others, right? To look at their achievements, but to go help others. I've found if I can remember to go do some service, to go, to when someone, we have a neighbor who's dealing with some serious health struggles and whatnot. And if you can find a way to just not just hear it and empathize, but go do something for someone, without credit necessarily, go do some, real service. That's a fantastic way to, and it sounds selfish as I'm saying it, because as you said, I'm in a sick way, I'm sort of doing it for myself, right? I'm trying to get what comes from that, but that's an amazing way. There's just so many benefits. I don't know how else to say it. There's so many benefits from responding and doing something for someone else that has no reward or recompense. So it's something I had to remind myself of. I'm so embarrassed of that, but it's another great tactic that I'll offer to anyone listening.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's important in life to give back in some way, shape, or form. If you want to have a fulfilling life, you have to, whether it's raising awareness or money, or actually doing a good deed, whatever it
Yeah.
is. I think it's very, very important. I agree
But
with
sometimes
you.
we have to remember, because I can get so busy. I just, so, you're building businesses. Where can people find you?
Well, meredithmarks.com has a link to meredithmarkscaviar.com, so you can kind of find everything I'm doing business wise on meredithmarks.com. And on Instagram at Meredith Marks, on TikTok at Meredith Marks, on X at Meredith Marks 0. I mean, I don't know. There are so many new platforms. I don't even know what they are anymore.
All right. Meredith Marks. She put the real in reality. You are a fantastic example to women and entrepreneurs and people. Thanks for all of your wonderful advice. And for
Thank
those
you.
listening, if you do nothing else, just remember, man, there's always there's always a better view. There's always a bigger company. There's always someone richer, and I promise you don't want any of their problems. So, uh, you know, take that to account. It just might save you 25 years. Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Once a year to take my friends away should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely hanging on.